I was in a nice marriage. My husband was loving, and I'm a school teacher. So I had a lot of times where I was at school having to deal with stuff, and I guess I did not see the red flags. Well, one evening when I decided to use the credit card, it wasn't working, and I thought that was odd because I don't even use this thing. So I decided to give it a check. What I came across was such a red flag. It was countless expenses and transactions to the IKEA furniture store, the handbag store, which has designer bags, and so much more. So I decide to confront my husband. But first, I call my father, and he tells me this.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to ask someone for advice regarding the situation I am in. Since, I can't really trust anyone in my life right now, I thought of asking it here on the internet. Since this is a very professional matter, I will be changing names and hiding as much info as I can just to make sure. People cannot track me down in real life, people I know. I'm doing all this because, recently, my husband of 4 years has been acting very distant and I need advice to find out the reason behind it. So, my name's Alice, I'm 30 years old and female, and I work as a teacher at the local public school. I mainly teach young children who do require special attention due to medical conditions. The school is one of the few in the country that provides funding for specially abled children. I met Tom while working there 8 years ago. Tom was in charge of managing all the public funds and donations we got from philanthropists. I originally hated him. At the time, he was dating a dreadful woman named Kat. Her name was actually Catherine Collins, but she demanded everyone call her Kat, because it was smart and modern, whatever. She worked as a minimum wage worker in the nearby drive-thru, and she would always come after her shift in the morning and hang out at the teacher's lounge. She was unbearably delusional and so annoying. She also used to smoke in the teacher's office. Even though the school was a no-smoking zone, but everyone else tolerated her for months because Tom was very nice without her around. I saw it differently, though. I thought she enabled her bad behavior, and even though he could clearly see that we were uncomfortable, he would not stop her. She would interfere in our discussions and even sit through a couple of meetings. Finally, after a lot of complaints to the management, Kat was forbidden from entering the school premises before the regular school hours were over. Tom was especially warned not to allow her inside and let her smoke on the premises. I was glad. I come from a relative staunch Christian household, and my dad is also a former Army veteran, so we grew up strict in discipline. So no smoking, no drinking or swearing, and interrupting other people was also considered to be rude. So Kat had made a lot of people mad, and me especially, and Tom more, for just allowing her to stay. I mean, this embarrassed Tom a lot, so he grew completely silent. Everyone also talked to him if it was absolutely necessary. Now, even though I should say, I should be happy, I felt sad for him. So one day, I invited him over to our summer party where we had it at Caroline's house. Caroline is my colleague from school. She was nearly 50 years of age and had a custom of hosting end-of-academic year parties for teachers and parents alike. No one wanted Tom there, because outside of school, they were sure he would come with his girlfriend, Kat. But to everyone's surprise, he arrived alone with a huge box of cookies that he, baked for the kids who graduated. The kids rarely got to interact with him since he was mostly cooped up in the office, and the kids had an absolute blast. And my colleagues patched it up with Tom. I was just happy the whole ordeal had ended on a happy note. At the end of the party, he sat down next to me and thanked me, so I am very bad at accepting compliments and thank you, so I just mocked him for an hour. But instead of feeling offended, he joined in and took some jabs at me. In the midst of this, it turned out I had agreed to date him as well. This was the start of our beautiful romance. Tom himself had served in the Army as an accountant manager for years before quitting to take care of his late mother in her final days. We hit it off instantly, and our values and goals matched perfectly. He also told me about Kat and their relationship. Kat has been his high school crush, and after returning from the army, he met her at the fast food joint. She recognized him and took him on dates, and eventually he was entrapped by his desire to marry his high school crush. This is starting to go downhill when she started borrowing money and spending it on luxury things. After she got banned from entering the school, they had a massive fight, where Tom stood his ground for the first time, so they broke up. I told him how everyone had felt about her at work, including opinions of her, and he just laughed it off. So, after 3 years of dating, he proposed to me at my father's place, and since my dad told him he wanted to be present for the important moment, Tom also did not have any close relatives, so he loved my father's attitude towards him. We had a big chapel wedding. Now, 4 years later, I feel like all that magic is lost. At first, I dismissed it. It was the small things that annoyed me, and we've always watched TV for like an hour after dinner, and cuddling nicely. It was peaceful, and after long days, it was so comforting. But he started sleeping early and just getting up for like 20 minutes to play some random video game. Our small responsibilities also started piling up on me. Taking out the garbage and preparing breakfast and dinner while cleaning the whole house, I always seemed to be the one occupied while he slowly started distancing himself from everything. This was over a year ago. Then the fight started. Small disagreements, and eventually I could not even remember the day I went to bed without feeling annoyed or angry with him. I asked Caroline, who was like a mother figure to me, how I had grown annoyed with marriage after just 3 years. She listened patiently and told me about her own 35 years of marriage, and every relationship has its ups and downs, and all we needed was vacation or a long talk with each other. She told me that it worked for her, so maybe I could give it a try. So, I came back home and started planning a vacation in full speed. It was almost the end of the school year, so the summer would be perfect, so I thought I could surprise him with a full itinerary on a budget. I even planned out how to have the conversation if we did not end up going, but it turns out, cruelly, he came back to me with a surprise. He was going away for a week for work, and there was an organization that was looking to donate to schools. So he wanted to go and convince them that our school was worth it. Seeing his excited face, I forgot all about my plan and helped him pack up. I could not go with him on such short notice since it was the last month of school. All of us were busy, so I bid him farewell. After he came back, his behavior changed, and he was even more huggable and caring, though it surprised me at first since he never really initiated any physical contact on his own. After the trip, he started getting more and more excited to spend time with me in bed. I also started getting flowers occasionally. I was shaking, but I was happy. So I presumed that the distance was what both of us needed for a bit, and I even told Caroline, who was happy with the switch herself. He also seemed more lively at work. The thing that started gnawing at me was that he went on these long runs in the morning, and I know it seems like a stupid thing to worry about, but Tom never liked running the whole time we dated. He had mild asthma as a kid, so running and anything endurance-related was absolute torture, as he told me. But after the trip, he became very obsessed with running and going to the gym. Also, he never seemed to run out of energy. It was weird for everyone at the office. Tom was often mocked for being overly introverted. Everyone started congratulating her for bringing him out of his shell, and I felt so happy that I stopped thinking it was weird. I assumed that this was all part of the ebbs and flows of life. We also took the vacation I had planned early, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. Even though I saw him on the phone almost all the time doing something or the other, but the Alps and their allure had distracted me enough to not be bothered. But all this came to a screeching halt when I saw an extremely raggedy man standing outside our house one day. He was, from the looks of it, to be a crackhead, for sure. I could not understand why he was in front of our home. I drove past my house and called my husband immediately. He was still at work fixing some start-of-year documents, and he told me to wait for him in the park near the house for 15 minutes and that he would be there shortly. So, I wandered around the park where, surprisingly, I ran into nobody but Kat, aka Catherine. She was dressed to be roaming around the park. It was weird, and I tried to avoid eye contact and walked away, and she almost seemed uninterested in me. 20 minutes later, I get a call from Tom, who told me he had chased away a crackhead and I could come back home. I got into my car and started driving away when I saw the raggedy man walking towards Kat and giving her something. I could not make out the exact object in my rear view mirror, but it bothered me, so I went back home and I told Tom. He just dismissed it completely, telling me that the man was in front of our house, cycled away in the opposite direction of the park. We had dinner that night, but the whole incident did not sit right with me, so I told him I would go with him for a run the next morning to check the park out once more. He was hesitant at first, but agreed to go with me. I even set up an alarm to go with him, but I did not wake up till the late morning when Tom woke me up before going to school himself. He told me I had slept through all the alarms and he did not want to disturb my sleep. So, he went on his own. I was already late to work, so I did not have time to think or argue, and I hurried through my daily routine. That night, I was window shopping on Amazon, and I saw a pair of beautiful necklaces and bracelet sets for couples that I wanted to buy. I was searching for our credit card when I tried to buy it in secrecy, but could not find it anywhere. When I asked Tom about it, he seemed equally surprised as well, and we searched all over our house and could not find it at all. We just went to bed after discussing how Tom could basically report it missing and get it blocked. But Tom never reported it. Even after I annoyed him all the time, he told me no one else could have it since he would have gotten an automated message if somebody swiped it anywhere. I just didn't feel it was right. So I saw the monthly credit card bill when it arrived, and Tom generally handles all the financial details of the house. 1, because he's better at it than me, and 2, because I don't know, I find it very annoying and get angry quickly. But this month, I went to the bank and got the statement, and the bill was extremely confusing. It was swiped a lot at IKEA and other luxury shops. We have not bought any furniture or gone shopping recently, and it could also be that he ordered all this to surprise me for my birthday, yes, but it feels off for some reason. I don't want to ask anyone close to me since they could be involved in the birthday surprise. I cannot ask Caroline since credit card information and doubt seem too much to share. So, I'm asking it here to you guys. How do you all think I should go about approaching this? I don't want to offend him or spoil any surprises, but on the other hand, I also feel like confronting him directly might be the best course of action, even if it hurts or spoils something. Well, thank you guys for reading this, and I look forward to your comments. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is about to get very, very intense. There's 4 updates, and the first update comes out 3 weeks after the original post. If you guys are new to the channel and you want more daily videos, go ahead. Hit that subscribe button underneath this video right now. It helps support the channel a lot, and I appreciate that from each and every one of you. Here is your first update, 3 weeks later. Thank you so much for all the suggestions. I did not think at the time I posted this that the story would blow up to such a degree. After reading the comments, I realized that I was being too naive and believing my husband so much, but unfortunately for me, the speculation among you turned out to be right. The timing of his exes being in town, the changes in his behavior, and the suspicious credit card transactions, well, yeah, they added up. He told me the whole story when I confronted him, so it turns out that when he went on the work trip, he met Kate. Should I say Kat? They started chit-chatting, and one thing led to another, and they ended up hooking up. Well, this broke my heart completely, but somehow the story gets worse. His ex had a crack addiction, that's right. It turns out she was from an extremely wealthy family who got cut off due to her addiction, and her parents had literally given up on her completely before she started dating Tom. Tom was broke, young, and a capable man who they saw bringing change into their daughter's lives, but the reason Kat has supposedly quit hard drugs was not really Tom. It was an overdose that happened while Tom was at work. She had by chance been saved by her inebriated friend who dumped her at the ER and collapsed. She was about to be charged with possession and use of hard narcotics, but her friend, surprisingly, to even Tom, pleaded guilty to spiking her drink that day, which led to the incident. This said friend also claimed that she was a dealer. This completely absolved Katharina, but Tom felt guilty for leaving her at her worst moment, so he stayed. But after a big fight, she was banned from school premises, and Tom went straight to her parents, who had been giving her a stipend to survive. Told them everything. To his surprise, they said they knew it all and had even paid the friend and her family to take Kat's charges. Tom was utterly horrified and completely cut her off. Well, let's fast forward. They meet again, and now Kat's wealthy and healthy, parading around using her dead father's money to build respect around her. Tom fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, and now he was also partaking in the drug habit. But these drugs are very expensive, so he was buying her things with our credit card to pay for his vices, and this enraged me. I wanted to call my dad and get him shot. Well, the crackhead in front of our house was one of Kat's goonies who needed the card. I regretted not confronting him that day, and I would have known the truth so long ago. I've since packed my bags completely and told him that I will be filing for a divorce. He had the audacity to get angry at me for it, and he even screamed at me and told me that I was useless, that he had to take drugs like that since our married life was so darn shallow and boring, and I just let the stranger I called my husband shout his heart out as I walked away. I'm now staying at Caroline's place. She doesn't know anything yet, but I've told her that I and Tom are going through a divorce. I don't know what to do from here. I really want to tell the management about him, but the lack of hard evidence is the issue, and if I tell my father, this will escalate beyond control. So right now, I'm waiting to see what Tom will do while trying to fix my broken heart. Update number 2 takes place a year later. Hey guys, I know it's been quite some time since I updated the thread with the news, and I do love that there's been conspiracy theories in the comment section developing around what will happen next in the thread itself. Well, here's the reality of what happened. I was crashing at Caroline's house where she asked a lot of questions about the divorce, and I was trying my best not to just break down and tell her everything. She's from an older generation and is prone to panicking when situations get crazy like this. But on the other hand, she had the power to convince the management to get Tom fired without needing much proof. She was the only teacher who had been around since the school was established. And I was confused and distraught, so I went to a nearby library to just think. I was trying to figure out if there was any way the drug nonsense could somehow bring up my name. Since Tom was technically consuming and living with me, he also uses my car regularly for grocery trips, which I do not trust to be as innocent as he claims. So, desperate times call for desperate measures, and I called my father at almost midnight, sitting on the cold footpath, bawling my entire worries out. For the first time, he just patiently listened to the entire conversation I was trying to piece together, and all the information I had told him in between sobbing and sniffing. Then he told me he would be coming to visit me in a few days, and he had some farm work that he had to take care of, and in the meantime, he advised me to just find another apartment to stay at, and he also sent me a huge sum of money through multiple bank transfers. The next day, I served my resignation letter for my school teaching job and went searching for nice apartments. By the time I signed the contract, since I was technically unemployed, the security deposit was very high. But thanks to my dad, I could afford it. He came over a few days later in a pickup truck. You see, we live in a nearby city, so he just drove all the way, and he also got some nice old furniture and utensils that were not needed at home just for me. I had also been shopping for nice second-hand couches, beds, not cots, and tables. So the empty house was filling up quite quickly. He also went snooping and met Tom. I don't know the exact details of the exchange that took place, but I hope there was no violence involved. He stayed there with me for 3 months and left only after I found a secure job as an editor at the magazine company. So last year has been quite hectic, and I've been trying my best not to feel lonely and depressed. I've also been socializing and connecting with old friends, and I have not seen Tom since the fight. We both signed the papers, and the lawyers dealt with the rest, and we did not really own anything as a couple, and I did not even want his alimony. Any connection with him felt tainted after the betrayal of trust. So, for the past 7 months, I've worked tirelessly to regain a sense of sanity and security. Thank you for all caring about me. Your advice came in quite handy in many situations, and I don't think I will be updating this story anymore, since it's unlikely any of the characters I've mentioned are other than Caroline. Of course, anyways, be safe out there. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here, and that's when I thought the story was over, and a lot of people did. However, deep into the comment section, 2 years have almost passed, and there it is, a beautiful comment by OP. And I found it, and it's update number 3, 2 years later. Guys, if you want to support the channel, it takes a lot of work to find all these updates. The best way to support me is by hitting that subscribe button. Here's your update number 3, 2 years later. First of all, I know I said there would not be an update regarding this whole story, but certain incidents have occurred in my life that I really cannot ask people around me about it again. It also is regarding the people I've previously spoken about and a couple of new people. A month and a half ago, I was walking my dog, my pit bull, Larky, when I saw an old colleague of mine from school teaching days. His name's Joey. We started talking, and eventually, too, the topic shifted to Tom and me. I told him I don't really care about him anymore. I was happily living with my partner, Jonathan. He's a bartender at the local pub, and I don't really drink, but I was dragged there once my colleagues were going from some New Year's celebration. I was really uncomfortable with the amount of booze and the completely drunk adults around me. John and I were the only ones who had not had a drink that night, and well, we both started chit-chatting, and he's extremely charming, I'll say. I was taken back at first, but he had broken through so many of the walls I put up after my divorce by just making me laugh. But I still almost made him chase me because I could not go through another heartbreak nearing 35 again. But John, for some reason, persisted and stayed, and we had both been through a divorce and had fractured ideas about marriage. So we just agreed to live with each other until we got annoyed. Joey told me he was happy I had found someone better than Tom. Apparently, Tom went off the rails a few months after I left, and he had become more and more agitated with everyone around him. I finally had a huge withdrawal and breakdown at the office. The ambulance had to be called, which eventually turned into some massive scandal, and the school was shut down for months after the police found evidence of embezzlement on Tom's financial reports. He had been scraping off the top to fund his and his mistress's lifestyle and bad habits, and he woke up a couple days later and confessed to everything. But despite the heavy cases against him, the sentence was very light. 7 years, with an enormous bail amount of $250,000. But someone had offered to pay the whole amount a month after his mandatory sentencing. Yeah, he's walking free right now. not paying for almost any of his crimes, and I told him that the bail partner and amount must have been his rich girlfriend and dealer, Catherine. We both joked about the whole ordeal, trying to figure out how fragile life was, and we went our separate ways. This put me in a somber mood for the rest of the day, but at the end of the week I got a call from old Joey. We exchanged numbers since I want help with the school in some way in the future, and he seemed a bit sheepish to start the conversation and finally blurted out that Tom wanted to meet me. I told him, well, I don't want to meet Tom, and never to tell him about my current whereabouts, please. Joey ended the call but sent me Tom's phone numbers, and he also said Tom needed desperate just to talk to me about something. Now, I can't tell John about this since he would not have any kind of connection, but I trust myself enough to know I will not be crossing any boundaries, you know. My father passed away last year, so I don't have any close family to rely on either. Friends are out of the question completely, and Tom never hurt me physically or did something to put me in mortal danger, even though he could have. I'm hoping to at least listen to what he has to say. Update number 4. This is the final update, guys, and it came out a week later. Alright, for sure, 100% this is the last update. Despite many of you telling me not to meet Tom again, I contacted him. He asked me to meet him in front of the local chapel where we got married, and I agreed. It was on a Friday evening. John would be late coming home, so I slipped out after work to go meet him. The cold winter air kept rubbing my hands for warmth a lot, and I pulled up to the chapel and waited for Tom. I was 20 minutes early, just like our wedding. I was just going through a PowerPoint memories associated with that day, and the joy and cries, and oh boy, how time flies. Just then, I was interrupted by Tom walking towards me. I had not seen him for nearly half a decade, and he had grown frail, thin. Drugs and depressions can do that to you. We both half smiled at each other, and the next few minutes were so awkward. None of us knew how to start the conversation, and we exchanged pleasantries and examined each other. He had a lot of rashes around his arm, and he had also lost a lot of his teeth. Finally, he broke the news. He has lupus. There was no donor or enough money to help with his treatment, so he was just traveling, getting his last affairs in order, and the idea of his death sat heavy with me. He also sincerely apologized for all the mistakes he had made as a husband and a friend. He also told me about Kat's life. After she paid his bail, they both had a huge fight, and in an inebriated state, she drove away in anger and had a terrible crash. She's alive, but now she's in a coma due to severe head trauma. All my life, everyone I've known has been so disappointed in me. This is my last chance to ease some of their burdens. You're lucky to have your dad around as a guardian. Even though you never knew your mother, you grew up confident and capable human. My mother could not handle herself after father passed. The pressure and anxiety finally gets to you, and I let my demons win. I'm sorry. That's what he said to me, and I told him back. I don't know about all that. Oh, and Dad passed away a year ago, so right now I have no angel looking after me either. Damn, that's sad. He was such a strong person, and right after I think you told him about our divorce, you know, he found me. I thought that he would beat me up for breaking your heart. I mean, he was so damn pissed. But he also asked me to quit all this. He knew I was a decent guy. I had my share of issues. I was high at the time and screamed at my last chance for a normal life. He seemed disappointed, and I was willing to throw it all away just to be high. He told me if I ever decided to turn back, I could come to meet you, or him, that we would understand the mistakes of a stupid lost man. At this point, I was sobbing. Tom was not innocent. He had done a lot to deserve hate, but I felt sorry for the guy. He consoled me and told me just to smile. I want to remember how a loved one smiles when I'm around. I cry because I want to forget. It's alright, after all this life is nothing more than life and death. He said that, sitting there at the chapel till almost 8 p.m. and walking away. I may never hear from him again. Even if I do, I will not be updating it here. Thank you for being strangers who could provide a vent for my emotions.
So this story was actually full of heartbreak. We learn about OP and how her father passes away, and that was basically the one guy left in her life who did not disappoint her. We find out that Tom, well, he's battling with the lupus, and Kat, she's in a coma. So this story had a lot of ups and downs, and just like OP said, yes, Tom went through a lot and he was a bad person for some of the things he did, but ultimately, she did not think he was a bad guy. Drugs got a hold of him and bad life choices. And it does say that even OP's father, after knowing that he cheated Tom, he still wanted to forgive him. So I want to know what you guys think of this story. What would you do if you were in OP's position? The story was a lot to understand and take in. I mean, there was a lot of drama to unfold. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. I love responding to your comments and reading them. I try to read every single one. Guys, if you want daily videos, the best way to get it is just by hitting that subscribe button. It does support the channel a lot, and it keeps these videos coming. I try to do at least 2 videos a day on this channel, and it is a lot of work. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. You never know what someone's going through, so just remember that. See ya.